Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on the latest episode of How to Build, our webinar series, where we dig into some of the most pressing questions and pitfalls that we encounter every day in talking to you, our dear customers out there in the world of content management. I'm very excited today because here at Builder, we're really obsessed with optimizing content and content workflows. And this week, we're focusing on one of the most asked about and oftentimes most confusing or maybe daunting optimizations that so many customers ask us about and feel, are constantly exploring, right? So of course, I'm talking about content translation, website, web app localization. In today's world, it's not enough to just have a single language site. Even beyond simple content translation, sophisticated websites more often than not are utilizing completely unique assets and content, and sometimes even entirely unique experiences that are catered to local cultures and local markets, right? So how can you create that content for these different locales? How can your modern CMS account for locales without requiring a super complex, overly overcomplicated dev-dependent deployment system, right? That's what we're here to talk about today. My name is Tim Garibaldi. I lead our customer engineering and solutions team here at Builder. And so I work with a lot of our largest enterprise customers. And I like to think I have my finger on the pulse of what our customers are talking about. So I'm really excited also to be joined here today by my colleague, the one who probably knows the most about the needs and workflows of our customers, more than just about anyone else. I'm talking, of course, about our head of customer success, none other than my dear colleague, Taylor Manzo. How's it going, Taylor?
Good. Thanks, Tim, for tapping me into this. Like you said in the intro, this is a growing topic of interest for so many of our enterprise customers today. So there's also a lot to this. So I'm just ecstatic to be able to talk about it with you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm very, very excited. So let's jump right in. Eh? Quick agenda for the next 30, 40 minutes here. So we just had our quick welcome. In a second, we're going to go through the topic itself, which is, of course, all things localization. We'll spend a few minutes talking about this problem, what it is, why it's such a pain, discuss what we see as some of the major issues and how Builder is working to solve them, right? We'll go over some of the techniques and methods that a lot of our customers are using and how we've kind of built a feature set natively within Builder, as well as some of our third-party integrations to help you localize your site. And then, of course, as Taylor mentioned, we will have some time at the end for questions. So feel free to post in the chat section and we'll get to those in the end. Sound good? Let's do it. So Taylor, like I said, you're talking to our customers all the time. What topics are most top of mind for them when discussing localization, and what are some of the biggest challenges they face? Oh, you're muted, Taylor.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Let's talk about it. It's a really, really large topic, right? And so let's first start with the basics. Today's world is more interconnected than ever, right? We all know this. And according to one of our partners, Smartling, more than 6,000 languages are spoken in the world today. And of those, it takes 52 languages to reach the majority of a global audience. Wow. That's the same number that's in a deck of cards. So if you're building a business with a global audience in mind, you have to be considering localization a top priority. And we hear that often with our customers, especially on the enterprise side, getting started with multiple regions on Builder's visual CMS, or customers who have seen the value of Builder's visual CMS in at least one region, wanting to expand, naturally to others to see the same success. So when we talk about localization here at Builder, we think about the true definition of the word, which is the process of adapting a piece of content's full meaning for a new region, including translation of text, including associated imagery, or cultural elements that influence how this content is perceived by a unique audience. So at the end of the day, we want to make our website feel as if it's written for that audience in mind. Great example, Afterpay, who's on our slide here. They're one of our enterprise customers, and they came to us and wanted to launch 3 different homepages for the United States, Australia, and New Zealand sites. So same, English language, but based off of demographic and seasonality and culture, they wanted a different look and feel. And so why is this important to our customers today? Why are so many more customers talking about this now? I think the answer is really simple. It's a brand's key to unlocking new markets. And so by offering brand experiences in a language that feels familiar, especially to the users at hand, people are much more likely to engage with content, click through content, convert, and be your customer. Well, ultimately, we're looking to increase revenue for our customers, and personalizing through localization is one of the ways to unlock it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I love this example because I think a lot of people think of localization as just like text translation. And this perfectly illustrates like everything here is in English, but you can obviously see very different home pages.
Exactly. And so let's talk about the different common types of localization when it comes to content experiences. The first that you see on the left is probably what we all think of firsthand. Translation. Translating is the process of reworking text from one language to another. People can accomplish this easily by using Google Translate. I know that's what I'm always defaulting to using. Or you might be a part of a larger team that have professional translators as part of your department, or part of your like what you can outsource. So that's definitely number one. And we have customers, the wonderful company here does this really beautifully with their wonderful wellness brand. However, to truly localize pages, like we talked about in the previous slide with Afterpay, one would want to look at the different assets on the page as well. So looking at the region, looking at related nuance in language as it relates to culture and what individuals might care about.
Definitely.
Cool. At the end of the day, our goal is beautiful and culturally relevant personalized content for these audiences, for our customers, which seems really simple. For one, am not a developer. So when I see these beautiful pages, I think, yeah, that's really easy. Just, create new pages and launch. But it's unfortunately just not as simple to set up as it may appear to me as a consumer. In fact, many customers who want to localize tend to be afraid of that word. They might stop in their tracks when they think about what's technically involved on the back end to do so. It just can be time consuming. And I know, Tim, you actually have firsthand experience with that.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I mean, this workflow inefficiencies really speaks to me, because I know like in a previous job before Builder, we had completely distinct websites, and kind of similar to what we outlined here on this slide, but like, having to test every change on each different web app for each different website. And then, maybe the Spanish language drop down isn't working just because of a typo. Like, it's totally redundant. It's super inefficient, and it's extremely frustrating. And it's not what you want to do if you're a developer or a QA person, or, whoever's kind of building these sites.
Totally. And that's like what so many customers come to us with, especially those that have localized in some capacity prior to getting started with Builder's visual CMS. So in the example, like Tim, what you just described, developers will start by simply duplicating what they are doing for a net new market or e-commerce site. So if they have the need for the United States, an English site, they have that ready to rock. It's published, it's in production. They'll begin to build the same for Australia or Latin America and so on, which seems, again, for someone non-technical, it seems logical, right? Copy paste. This makes sense as long as it's easy for someone to jump in, edit the content they need to, and switch between apps. Yeah, that seems like a great way to get started. But that's absolutely where simplicity stops. Because as time goes on, like you mentioned, the need to maintain not just content, but performance, infrastructure of these apps and sites becomes greater and greater. And it just leads to a lot more maintenance for especially the developer. I hate to think about a security issue, right? As an example, security issues in your United States, your English market app. And all of a sudden the devs need to jump all over that issue, but then we might need to also remedy it for 8 different apps and sites, which just becomes a lot of repetitive effort. And it takes away, the workload of developers who might want to be focused on other things like optimizing their site and improving performance. all of a sudden we're backlogged with a ton of work just to get certain sites stood up and working correctly. And this has a domino effect. So for business users that we work with, marketers or product members, they don't want to be stuck waiting for these changes to be made. People that we work with want to be focused on A/B testing content, creating more personalized content for the audiences at hand, and thinking about conversion, thinking about that bottom line rather than, waiting for content to be approved or ready to rock.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we see this across the board, and so many of our customers coming to us looking for new solutions.
So yeah, long story short, and I promise that's the worst part of this webinar, is talking about the before state, because it is overwhelming, right? And we're here today to tell you there's actually multiple ways within Builder that we can make localization more scalable and more efficient thanks to Builder's visual CMS capabilities. So I think without further ado, Tim, let's jump into some of the solutions.
Yeah, no, so we've outlined the problem, right? And let's see what solutions Builder has kind of come up with to help our customers realize their localization strategies. Here at Builder, and this is kind of a common theme you may have noticed, but we like having options. We like having multiple ways to do things so that we can, depending on how your web app is set up or what your specific use case is, you're going to have an option within Builder to be able to achieve your goals, right? So based on our conversations with our customers and understanding of their use cases, these three are kind of the three most common strategies for website or app localization that we have seen, right? And luckily, like we said, at Builder, we have options for all of these, both through native features, but also partnering with some of our many integration partners that we'll kind of talk about here in a little bit. But let's dive into each of these strategies kind of individually first, and then we'll have a demo of each of them also at the end directly in Builder. Cool. So the first one here is page level localization. Okay, so page level localization is probably, I would consider, maybe the most straightforward and requires the least setup within Builder. But, of course, everything has a couple trade-offs between the different methods of you doing things, right? So for page level localization, you're basically just creating new content entries within Builder for each language or for each target audience, and then serving the appropriate content to the appropriate audience, right? It's pretty simple to set up. You're basically going to create some targeting attributes and pass those as a user attribute from your app into Builder. And then Builder's going to recognize that and be able to serve the right content. And again, we'll demo exactly what this looks like here in a second. From a content perspective, the benefit here is that each page can be completely unique, and there's no real relation to each other, right? So if you want to have completely different experiences, like you want to have CTAs in different locations, you want to have product carousel somewhere, or have a video at the top of the screen, it's really up to you. You can just create completely unique experiences on each page. So that's kind of the flexibility of it, right? But with that comes a little more maintenance, because now each page is so distinct, you have to kind of like maintain it and be on top of that, right? So what if you don't need that much flexibility, right? That brings us to block level localization. Block level localization is great for when you have content that has a specific structure, or you want your pages to maintain the same structure, but still want to be able to localize on the block or component level, right? So a great example of this would be maybe like a blog or something, or the homepage that we saw from Afterpay earlier, right? Where it looked like the same thing. It's just that the content that populated each block and component was slightly different for each locale. So again, the setup within Builder is fairly straightforward. All of our latest SDKs will take a locale prop that you can pass from your app into Builder. And then Builder is going to be able to, we have a new UI that we'll go through that shows you kind of how you can, create content for each of those locales. And then Builder in our SDKs is going to resolve that content and serve the appropriate content to each user, right? So it's a great solution, again, for localizing similar visual experiences. Possibly not as flexible as the page level, but also maybe more efficient. You're not doing as much. And then, of course, both of these, and one of the things that I really value at Builder, both of these strategies also can be applied to a data model. And that's kind of the third, method that we have here, right? So I think a lot of people think of Builder as like a visual CMS, and of course we are. And that's like the biggest power of Builder is that visual CMS capability. But I think people sometimes forget that we also have a full feature-rich, just traditional CMS data model capability as well. And so all of these same localization features that you can apply to your pages and your sections, you can also apply to your data models. So you can have the content entry kind of page level localization as well as the field level localization. And then the power here is that this is going to be data. So you can pull this in from API into your app and use it in your native app, in your web app, across multiple locales, in email, text, whatever the case may be, however you want to use those data models, you'll be able to localize them.
What I love about all these different options, Tim, is just like you said, the flexibility of Builder is crazy. But depending on your use case, a single customer often comes to us and we recommend all three of these different approaches to localization, right? Depending on where on the site they're looking to bring new content experiences.
Absolutely. No, it is not a either or, it is an and kind of situation, right? You can mix and match, like maybe your homepage, you want to have distinct page level localization, but then like you said, your blog or your product pages, you want to localize your headlines using that field level localization. And again, even the field level localization, you can just do the headline or what, you don't have to do the entire page. So there's tons of flexibility there, which is great. And speaking of flexibility, that brings us kind of to this last bit, which is that, like we said, Builder have a lot of native features. We're always working to improve our native features and add more. But at the end of the day, we know our customers work with a lot of partners already, or there are partners or other apps out there that do things really well that, we want to integrate into Builder and, set up a partnership with, right? So here you can see on the page, we have Phrase, SmartLink, Crowdin. Those are three translation and localization partners that we've already set up public plugins with. But of course, anyone can set up their own private plugin if you already have a localization app that you use. Or of course, the last bit is that all of these were kind of brought to us from customers saying, hey, we really like this, we use this, we think it's going to be great for Builder. We'd love to explore building out a plugin. And so, if you have an example of another app that you use, we'd love to hear about it. And we'd love to kind of integrate it into our app as well.
Yeah, I couldn't reinforce that even more, because even this week, we just learned of another partner that one of our customers on the enterprise side is looking to build a private plugin to start with. And it's another localization partner. So the more that we hear from our customers, not even just with localization, but the more that we can connect with our APIs to bring more data and efficiency, the better we are as partners to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now I think we've spent a lot of time talking about it. I'd love to kind of show it and see what it actually looks like in practice in Builder. So let me go ahead and pull up my Builder app here. Let me make sure I've got it all going. Great. So, setting up localization in Builder, there is a little minimal amount of setup. And we'll go through that here. So like I mentioned, in order to in order for Builder to be able to figure out what locale you're trying to serve content to, you need to create these custom targeting attributes. So here in the account space, there's a custom targeting attribute setting, and you'll see here, I've already created it. And the word locale is actually a key word for us here. You can, of course, create any of your own custom targeting attributes based off of logged in, logged out, return customer, signed in, whatever. But locale is a very specific one that's going to be used for a lot of the localization here. And of course, you can create, whatever works, as many as you want, right? And then it's based on just text. So it can be whatever, syntax that you use. A lot of people use this like ENUS or just the ENES example, right? Go ahead and save. And now you're set up. Within your code, like I said, you're going to need to pass that locale into Builder. And there's a couple ways you can do that. If you're doing that page or content level localization, you're going to want to pass it as a user attribute. You can do that either in a kind of server-side builder.get call or a get content call, or as well pass it into the Builder component. And then if you're doing the more block level localization, you would pass it as this locale prop here in the options, as well as in the Builder component. Of course, we have documentation on this. It's pretty similar. All of our SDKs are fairly similar. Sometimes there's different syntactical changes, but a fairly similar idea at least. Right now, I've hard-coded the locale to be EN, but generally your app will have some sort of logic that uses like geolocation or cookies or something to capture the location of your customers. And from there, you're pretty much set up and good to go. And that's really the only setup that you need, right? So first, let's kind of look at how to set up that content entry level or page level localization. Here I have this beautiful page that was built by our marketing team as an example. And this one's serving to the English kind of default, right? So let's say we want to go ahead and create a Spanish language version, right? What we'll do is we'll come in, duplicate this page. I'll rename it to, Spanish, whatever the case may be. And then we'll just add that targeting. Locale is Spanish, publish, and that's pretty much it. We're good to go. So now you can come in here and you can see, in Spanish, or, let's say you don't want to have a CTA, or you want to come in here and choose like a different image completely, right? So this is where we're getting into that like customization of your landing page and your experience, right? When I go ahead and publish this, if I check the live page, we're on that same URL and you're seeing we're still getting this English version. And again, that's because in the code, I'm hard-coded this English locale. If I change this to Spanish, come and refresh. Now we're getting the Spanish language page. Easy as that, right? And then you can just kind of customize and go from there. So that gets us to, that's the page level, the content entry level. What if we want to do that block level localization? What does that look like, right? So here I have another page. This shoe page, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this as well, just so we can keep the default page nice and clean. And now, because I'm passing in this locale prop, you'll notice that all of these inputs now have this dropdown that is picking up those different targeting attributes that we already defined. And so in here, we can come in and click localize on this text. And now we can come in and say the future of comfort. That's our default. In Spanish, we'll say the future of Spanish language comfort, right? And then Canadian, if the Canada, I don't know, future is here, whatever you want it to be, right? And then you'll notice now any of these entries that have this field, as we switch it back and forth, it's going to show that all those content entries. And if we publish this page, again, view live page. Now we have that, because we're passing in that Spanish prop, that's going to show, if we pass in the Canadian value, it'll update to that Canadian value. And of course, this is not just restricted to text like we showed earlier. You can come into an image, anything. This is kind of a new UI we recently launched, but anything that has this little globe icon, you can come in and, automatically, choose a different photo, whatever the case may be. And it's gonna,
Customers are loving that new update, by the way. It just saves so much time without having to go into multiple entries. I mean, page level localization is great, especially for the reasons that you walked through. But this is, saves you time from duplicating entries, clicking into different entries, making sure things look right. You can do it all within one single entry point.
yeah, exactly. And again, like I said, anything that was in a section or a page model also applies to our data models, right? So if we go to a model here, let's say go into the model schema, there's this localized value that you can pass in, and now suddenly this value is going to get that same treatment of being able to select 4 different values. And I can show you, I'm not going to save it, but I'll show you what that looks like. So you can see here, this title was already localized. So now we can add the localized value for the title, or if we want to do the content entry version, in a data model, come here, duplicate it, add that targeting, same way as you do with, the page or section models, and you're good to go. Now, pretty straightforward, but the last thing I wanted to really show is, this is great. Where was it? This one that I made?
Yeah, everything so far, just to confirm, everything so far is done within Builder. So
Exactly.
no add-ons. It's just part of the plan and something you can jump into right away.
Exactly. And now, it's great. You can come in here, localize it, add all your fields, whatever. But let's say you already have some localization workflow, or again, you have this plugin or a partner that you already use, and you want to be able to translate your entire page quickly using kind of an external workflow. And that's where our third-party plugins really come in. So for example, this space is set up with Phrase, one of our newest partners. And what I can do here, I'll show you an example of this. And we have this little section. I'm going to go ahead again and duplicate it just to keep it kind of clean. And now what we can do is I'm going to just throw a little text on here, and then we'll say don't translate me, right? Make it white so you can see it. Basically, what we're going to do is once you publish, because I have Phrase set up here as a plugin, once we publish, now if you click these 3 dots, you're going to see this button that says translate. And what you can also do, the reason I put this text in here is if you click on any text and right click, you'll be able to open this selector, and there's one called exclude from future translations. So you're able to select which values you actually want to send to our translation plugin and which ones you don't, right? So for this text, we're not going to send this to Phrase. So now we're good to go. Everything looks good. We're going to translate it. We're going to start in English, and we are going to translate to Canadian English, right? And this just has to send this off to Phrase. And now, once that's done, you can go to the job details. It'll log you into Phrase here, and you'll be able to see directly in your projects within Phrase. Come in here, and Builder's going to pull all of those translatable strings and put them in the Phrase UI to make them easily translatable. This is obviously specifically a demo for Phrase, but MemSource, Crowdin, it's all kind of a similar workflow. And maybe did I not enable that? I didn't publish it. So that's why it did not, it still captured it. You got to publish it before it goes, but we can go ahead and just kind of show what this looks like going through the workflow. And then you would just say, you would copy over some text, let's say, you could say, welcome. Some comfy shoes there, right? We're in Canada. And then we'll just leave this one the same. Cool. And then once it all looks good and your team approves it, we'll go ahead and accept that translation. Takes a second. And while that's finishing, I mean, I have an example of it here where you can see now we have this apply translation button, and it's going to go ahead, pull all those translations into your state. You'll be able to see all the translation objects from all of the different fields. So for this one, I had translated it into Spanish and for the Canadian audience. And you can see here, again, now as we move through, it's going to change all those fields. And this one did not have this set up, or this was excluded correctly. So that's why there's no translation there. So it's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. And again, kind of adaptable for whatever your workflow and whatever your use cases and specific tech stack are. And it's kind of great to see all these different, translation tools that we've been adding into Builder lately. It's really exciting to see what everyone kind of has been using it for. But yeah, I think that kind of covers most of all the functionality. Any questions?
Thanks for going through all that, Tim. It looks like we have one question so far in the chat that we can talk about. And it's actually something our customers come to us asking about in general, just in terms of organizing content and entries within the visual CMS today. So for customers that have full pages that they're looking to localize in different languages for these different markets, what's the best way that we recommend customers, stay organized within Builder in terms of naming conventions or even views within Builder?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I can share my screen again down on the app. So generally what we see, it's really up to you. You notice I added this translated tag, untranslated tag. That's pretty common to use some sort of tagging or naming convention to just keep track of things. And then also you can create views.
Yes.
Where you can say, okay, this name is translated.
And translated meaning you've got field level translations occurring on the entry itself, correct?
Yes, or however you want to define it, right?
Cool.
You can add this and make it to exclude untranslated and all that kind of stuff. But you can keep that kind of naming conventions and create, like I said, these views. I know some of them, for example, Smartling uses it's a very similar workflow, but it'll add a data model called a translation job here. So you can kind of keep track of your active translation jobs in Builder. For phrase, you're managing it more directly in phrase. It's definitely kind of up to how your team wants to do it. But there are options for sure.
The saved views are great, especially not just for localization, but we see customers really get creative and create views based off team, based off of live content. So in production, based off of up next content, based off of markets, based off of locales. So yeah, I'd say organization views are underrated within the Builder visual CMS for sure.
Definitely. And then also, I just wanted to point out for those page level localization, you're going to get the targeting attributes here as well. So you'll see this has locale is ES. And again, you could even create a filter that says, targeting locale is ES. And it'll pull up all those, so you can, again, create filters in that way and create kind of organizational and personal views.
Cool. Thanks, Tim. Next question, something that's a very large topic in localization that we did not cover are things within the app itself, things like pricing, currency conversion within localization. Can you talk a little bit about how you would approach that within Builder?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you similar to how you could use any sort of like field or page or using a third-party translator, you can just like in the localized section change, dollar signs to euros or pesos or whatever the case may be. There, yeah, and I'm trying to think. I mean, there's probably also a way you could use some sort of data model to kind of like map and automatically update pricing or something. But in terms of like auto converting prices and stuff like that, that's probably going to be, maybe in your app, you could have some sort of logic that handles that. Or you could have like different, again, it would be maybe like a data model, or if you have products that are related to a data model, you can kind of have different versions of those products for each locale, and then use data bindings to make sure you're pulling the appropriate product for the appropriate locale kind of thing.
Yeah, agreed. A lot of pricing also is managed a lot of times within code. So that's obviously we can bring in those code components into Builder. I think there's a whole nother webinar topic on that. But yeah, this is more in line with using and thinking about the content itself and the visuals and the other components in Builder, how you would localize those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. A next question in the chat is around, do we have any plans to integrate with Global Link? We are in talks with the Global Link team today. So we don't have anything ready to rock and roll in terms of a direct integration or a public integration, but we're really hopeful that that's something that we will pursue in the next couple of months. Great question. Next, is there a possibility to implement DeepL for the first translation and then still being able to rework, adjust the translations?
I'm not sure DeepL what you mean specifically, but there's definitely the ability to kind of rework translation. So that UI that just popped up, if you add new content to the page, you'll be able to update translations. So specifically for this version, you can reset translation, which is going to remove. So anytime you fetch the translation, it adds it, like I said, in state as a translation object. And so if you reset the translation, it's going to wipe that away. And then you can fetch a new translation or create a new translation job, go back into Phrase or SmartLing or Crowdin, update the translations, reapply them, and do it like that. Within the Builder UI itself, because we're fetching that translation object, we're using a dynamic data binding to apply it here. So if you're really like technical and code competent, or you have your dev team, then you can come in and maybe like manually manipulate these. But generally, if you're using a third-party plugin, we kind of recommend maintaining that flow and just kind of like creating new jobs, updating translations, repulling those jobs, and reapplying each time.
Cool. Great question. And we have a follow-up to the currency conversion question. Is it safe to say that we simply have an attribute and we allow the conversion for a specific currency to currency, which is being provided by a third party as the market currency change?
Yeah. So I think the question is like, which is being provided by third party at the market. Yeah. So this is kind of touching back to what Taylor was saying. I think a lot of the currency questions are often best handled in code. And so if you have some sort of plugin or kind of version that, some logic in your code that handles that, or if you're pulling it from some database that manages your pricing, that's probably the best way to do it. And then you'll have, that locale attribute is already going to be in your code. And so you can use that within your logic, whatever, however it makes sense.
Cool. Thanks, Tim.
I see the next question, which is one actually I'm glad that you brought up. It says, so Currently, if you're using a different locale, it's targeted to the same URL, which is not going to be SEO friendly. And that is true. You definitely want to localize your URLs as well, if you can. And we do have some support for that here as well. So if you actually go, and this is possibly even outside of kind of localization, but when you go to the URL path, there is, where's the UI to add multiple URLs? We do have the ability to target multiple URLs. And so you can kind of translate the URL and have it be in Spanish. I think it might need to be enabled in a setting.
Jason jumped in and said the same thing you said. Maybe it's just not turned on.
Yeah, I'd have to find it, but it is something that we support, and we have some documentation on it as well. I can't remember exactly.
I think if you go back to general, it might be that first.
Allow targeting multiple
Yep.
URLs. There we go. Yeah, so then if we come here, there should be now UI, add another URL, and you can do, Espanol, whatever the case may be. And then it'll target both of those URLs within your app. So, yep.
Cool. And we have SEO page descriptions that you could add at the bottom there, unrelated to localization, but just an added benefit in Builder.
Well, and these can also be, these are just custom fields within your page model. So, as with anything else, if you come into the page model, you can localize these as well.
Great questions.
Do we have a webinar like this on SEO? Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Keyword. Great topic idea.
Cool. Why don't we jump back into the slides here? Okay. We just did a demo. Great. Questions. We've been going through the questions. But if nothing else.
Yeah, we have one more quick question just in the chat. Why are some localization options still under the beta flag in Builder? This is a good question.
Yeah, no, this is a great question. This is kind of more of a it kind of speaks to our thought process here at Builder. So we have a lot of features coming out all the time. And so this is something that has been in the hands of customers for a while. And we have a lot of customers using this at like a production level across multiple websites with high traffic websites. But, we're still kind of in what we would call the information collecting and iteration phase, where we're desperate for feedback from all of our customers for all of these features. So we want more people to use it, and we're going to continue to like build it out and fine tune it. But like I said, it's definitely like a production ready feature set that a lot of our customers are using. But we do want to like make sure to get more information, and then, work with our customers. If they have any issues come up, we'll work to address those. Cool. Okay. Taylor, anything else?
I don't think so. Yeah, just thank you everyone for joining.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much. This was a lot of fun, Taylor. I appreciate you doing this with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And join us next time. We do not, I don't think, have a schedule yet, but probably in the next month or two, we'll have our next webinar where we're going to go over all things personalization. We've had a couple new features come out specifically with targeting, really exciting stuff that we'd love to share with everyone. So yeah, Please tune in again next time.
Oh, another one of my favorite topics, personalization, which includes another beta feature called smart targeting. So we'll be talking all about that on the next go.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Taylor, and everyone. Have a good Thursday and rest of your week.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everyone.